It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Much like Backstreet, he is back. Alan Saunders back on Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. Alan, what's going on?
I'm back. I walked in here and there was like a spider web. Like, I had to like brush aside the cobwebs because it's been too long. Took a little vacation over Labor Day weekend. Great to be back. Great to be ready for week 1. I'm refreshed. I'm recharged. Did some reading. I felt like all my words were much better today and yesterday. It's great. I'm good. And then we got some news. Big news.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're back and Nick Bosa.
It makes my job and this show a lot easier when there's important big stuff to talk about. What's the important big stuff to talk about?
Well, Nick Bosa didn't want to sign when we had Nick Faribault on here. He was gracious enough to wait until you returned to the show.
I asked him to, and he was like, all right, fine. I'll wait until Wednesday when you're back, Alan, so that we can get this done.
Yeah, so Nick Bosa back in the fold now for the 49ers. Massive deal, highest paid defensive player in NFL history. Of course, that just means until the next guy of that caliber is up for a new deal, and then they're going to break it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Bosa back in the fold. Yeah, there you go. There's the next one. Nick Bosa back in the fold. The Steelers have said, from Mike Tomlin to Dan Moore, et cetera, they've been preparing for this. They fully anticipate that he was going to be on the field. But what does this mean now that we have the clarification that he is going to be out there on Sunday?
Not much. I mean, I kind of knew that I felt like this was going to happen. I'm a little bit, honestly, looking at the number, surprised that it took them this long to agree on this number. I think this is a number that Bosa would have agreed to a long time ago. I don't really know what the holdup was here. Maybe it was on the 49ers part that they were kind of dragging their feet. But, like you said, like the Steelers have been preparing to play Nick Bosa. I saw, the tackles and tight ends working together in tandem on run blocking today. That's kind of the very thing you would be emphasizing if you're going up against an elite edge rusher. And, I don't think obviously he's a really good player, right? It hurts the 49ers if he doesn't play, but I kind of felt like guys don't throw away paychecks. Even guys that really want a new contract, I would have been really surprised. If he missed this game, I'm not surprised that he's going to play in it. Obviously, his presence means a great deal to that San Francisco team that now I think you can very easily say has like an all-out killer playmaker at all 3 levels when you put Bosa on the front line and Warner in at linebacker and Hufanga back at safety. I mean, I think that's like 3 all pros, like 1, 2, 3, in a way that not very many other teams can do. It certainly will be a strong challenge for the Steelers offense, for the tackles and their pass protection, for Kenny Pickett. But I think it's the challenge we've been expecting this whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I actually tweeted about this last week, and then Tomlin talked about, a similar situation with TJ. We're going into 2021, signed like 3 days before the Steelers went to Buffalo. The one difference when I brought that up to Nick was talking about TJ was still, doing conditioning around the team every single day. That hasn't necessarily been the case with Nick Bosa. So from your perspective, what are you anticipating? What version of Nick Bosa, or is he going to be on a pitch count, or should we just expect to see Nick Bosa full go on Sunday?
I would expect to see Nick Bosa full go. The one thing you worry about if you're San Francisco would be a soft tissue injury, right? I mean, I think that's the thing where if you're not really ready to go, like a hamstring or a groin or something like that, I think that's the concern. If I'm San Francisco right now and I'm looking at how I want to deploy my team, that's what I would be worried about. But we'll see how they approach that. I bet if you put a microphone in front of Nick Bosa's face today, he'll play them all. I doubt that he's been sitting at home on the couch doing nothing. I'm sure he's in good shape. He's an elite player. And I think we've seen time and time again, elite players do not necessarily need, all this training to be ready to go. TJ Watt is a prime example. He was doing things with the Steelers minimal things. I mean, he was staying in shape. He was around the team. He was in meetings. But look, defensive line is, with all due respect to the people that spend a lot of time in it, and TJ Watt maybe spends more time on it than anyone I've ever heard of. At the end of the day, maybe the least mental position in football. Like, this is see ball, get ball, right? I mean, this is physical dominance more than it is about being aware of what your teammates are doing in the play. I mean, they do have a new defensive coordinator. I assume there's going to be some new in the San Francisco defense. Steve Wilkes taking over for D'Amico Ryans now that he's the head coach with the Houston Texans. I just, I think he's going to play, and I think he's going to be very good. TJ in that game against the Bills had 2 sacks, a tackle for a loss, and a forced fumble was a major reason why the Steelers won that game. I wouldn't surprise me at all if Bosa has the same kind of production.
I'm glad you brought up the defensive coordinator thing, because I brought that up to Nick yesterday too, and I was going to get your thoughts. If you didn't bring it up, I was going to ask you about it. If you took that into consideration at all, either. I mean, going from D'Amico to Steve Wilkes, really the differences of their schemes are on the back end and in the blitz pressure, how often they want to blitz. So there really is nothing schematically different about the way that they do things on the defensive front anyway. But I didn't know if that was on your mind at all with how effective you think Nick Bosa would be.
Maybe some terminology stuff. Like, if they're changing terminology, that could be something that would trip him up if he hasn't been in there getting those kind of communications reps, the mental reps, play call checks. You'll see linebackers at the line and safeties, maybe they'll clap, or maybe they'll put their arms out or something like that, where they have a check or a signal like that. But again, really, he doesn't even need to know what's going on behind him. As long as he knows what the guy next to him is doing, are we stunning? Are we twisting? Is it some kind of game? No, I'm just rushing. Okay, great. Here we go. I mean, there's not that much to playing defensive end. And I don't expect him to be limited by his lack of mental reps and knowledge on that kind of thing. If anything, like I said, you're worried about soft tissue injury, or maybe just not being in shape, maybe needing to come out a little bit more than Nick Bosa usually does. But those would be the only real things that I think I would be really concerned about. I expect him to be a really good player.
I feel like this is somewhat turned into a 49ers podcast with this Nick Bosa saga going on over the last couple of days. I said
49ers when I was a kid. I always they were kind of I liked Joe Montana a lot. I thought he was a good player. I liked their offense. I thought it was creative. I thought they were very, I mean, who doesn't like Jerry Rice? I don't know. I thought they were very likable. It's very rare to me that I think great teams are likable. And I thought those great 49ers teams of the early 1990s, Montana, Rice, guys like Roger Craig, Tom Rathman, I thought they were a very likable team. And, I was kind of, obviously I grew up a Steelers fan, but I was kind of pulled for the 49ers. I hope they did well. And 49ers podcast. Let's do it.
Well, I do want to kind of switch gears a little bit here and talk about so Nick and I went over a lot of stuff that came up in Tomlin Tuesday.
Hold on. However, can we do one more thing on Bosa though before we get into
I guess so. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say I think this makes the TJ Watt contract look pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
I think if you hold these two, would you rather have at the same, would you rather have Bosa for 34 million or TJ for 28? I think I would rather have TJ for 28. And 2 years have passed, and so you expect the new contract to be higher. We said before, Micah Parsons, when he signs his, he'll probably be the the next top one up there. But I feel like, it's hard to say when you give a guy the highest contract in the league at his position that you're getting a good deal. But the Steelers did that with TJ, and I think with the way it lines up, I think it looks, now that we have something more relevant to compare it to, I think it looks like a pretty good deal.
Are the Cowboys going to try to manipulate this and not pay Parsons as an edge rusher, because that's an elite premium position?
Well, if they try to franchise tag him, yes, absolutely, they're going to pay him like an off-ball linebacker.
So I'm talking about even that conversation before we get to a long-term thing.
I think he still has this year and next year under his rookie deal, and then 25 would be his option year, and they could tag him in 26. So it could be a long time before things came up with Micah Parsons. But yeah, I expect they're going to try to pay him like an off-ball linebacker. I would try to pay him like an off-ball linebacker.
Yeah, it just popped in my mind as we were talking about it here. With
how that goes. Now, obviously, I mean, he does a lot more than that. He's one of the best defensive players in all football. But yeah, I mean, I assume that they're going to try to pay him at a discount. I don't know I'm not sure who else would be kind of in that conversation in terms of those top contract defensive players that might be coming up, next. Garrett doesn't come up till after TJ. TJ might be again, he comes up in 26, the same year actually that Parsons does. And so I don't know who would kind of be that next one.
Max Crosby just signed last year and he was 4 years. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't think there's anybody. I'm trying to think of like a defensive tackle. Like I don't. When's Donald's contract up? Like that's to me like
I don't know. Quinnen Williams just signed.
Yeah, Aaron Donald comes up in 25. So I think really Aaron Donald is probably the next guy, and who knows? I mean, he's already 31. I don't know. Like he may not get that top contract again at this point in his career. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Where I wanted to pivot to though was a conversation that Nick and I didn't have at all when talking about stuff that Tomlin brought up on Tuesday. That's about special teams. Special teams has obviously played a key role for the Steelers. All the time. It's a key role. Tomlin loves his special teams guys, but especially within the reason that they won these last two openers that we always talk about, beating better teams in the Bills and the Bengals. And he touched on special teams, touched on a guy in Miles Killebrew who was named the captain, which at one point, we weren't even like sure that he was going to make the 53-man roster because he doesn't really do anything on defense. Tomlin doesn't care about that. He's the guy on special teams. What were some of your takeaways from that part of the conversation?
Yeah, I thought it's just the thing I thought was really interesting was Tomlin was asked kind of directly what goes into those big plays that the Steelers have had on special teams in week one the last 2 years. And they got a blocked punt for a touchdown in Buffalo in 2021. That was Killebrew who blocked the punt. And now I'm having a hard time remembering who returned it.
Ulysses Gilbert.
Yeah, Uli Gilbert, right? And then last year, of course, Minka Fitzpatrick blocks the extra point to send the game to overtime. A couple of really big special teams plays. And I think the question was asked from the standpoint of, hey, what are you doing on week one? Got Danny Smith in here cooking up new looks, and are you fooling teams with things they haven't seen on tape before? And Tomlin's answer, I thought, was very, very key to me, was that he's like, no, usually big plays and special teams are not about what somebody did right. It's about what somebody did wrong. He used the word negligence, which I loved. He's like, somebody screwed up. And last year, of course, it was the backup long snapper for the Bengals, right? That, took too long to get the ball back and gives Minka that opportunity. I haven't broken down that punt against the Bills in a while, but I'm assuming somebody missed an assignment or missed a block or something. And so he was talking about how, negligence is what causes big plays on special teams, not, creativity from one side or the other, and how the Steelers have been in those week ones a cleaner team because they've had that core group of special teamers that have stuck around for years and years. But this year, things are kind of the other way. If you look at their core special teamers from last year, Derek Watt's gone, Benny Snell's gone, Zach Gentry's gone, Marcus Allen is gone, Robert Spillane is gone. And so they're missing Art Millette. They're missing a bunch of guys that were key special teamers for them in the past. Now, I think I like the sort of makeup of the group that is set to replace those guys. People like Elijah Riley, Nick Herbig, Mark Robinson, Connor Hayward. Those are players that I like that I think can do a good job on special teams, but it's not experienced group. It's not as experienced a group as the Steelers have had. And I think if you're looking at, the way that's played out, maybe the Steelers are the ones that need to be worried about a big special teams play going the other way in this game, as opposed to being the team that gets it. The one area where I would say maybe that's not the case would be in the punt return game, I thought Calvin Austin was electric in the preseason. I definitely think he can be a weapon for them there. And I feel like that's a position where sometimes teams just need to learn that you can't kick to a guy. Somebody's got to bite the bullet and learn a hard lesson, right? I think that's something that you see around the league often, is that once a player breaks a couple returns against somebody, then the rest of the teams that follow are like, all right, we see, never mind, not going to do that. I don't know that they care about the special teams kicks in that way, though. I don't know if a couple big returns against Atlanta's special teamers and Buffalo's special teamers is going to scare anyone. A couple in the regular season will. And so maybe that's a place where I think the Steelers could make some splash in special teams. But I think in terms of like kick blocking and kick protect, the shoe is probably on the other foot here in terms of they're the less experienced team that is hoping everything holds together here for this first game and hoping there's no missed assignments and big plays the other way that end up hurting them.
With how much turnover there's been on special teams lately and them bringing him back, do you think there's a chance we see Miles Boykin get a helmet on game days and be active just because of special teams?
I do. I think I was kind of jotting down some notes at practice today just about like who was playing where and doing what. And I was kind of thinking to myself, I was like, who's going to get that helmet on offense? And you kind of look at it and it's like, I kind of think Miles Boykin, pretty important special teamer, like weren't going to keep him if he wasn't going to play. I do think he's going to get a helmet. I think it might be interesting to see who that comes in place of. Anthony McFarland's the kick returner. So I don't think it's going to be him, right? I mean, he's got a special teams role as well. So maybe there's like maybe it's Gunner, he can play special teams too, obviously, but maybe he's the odd man out in that offense. I think it's very interesting. Obviously, like Dylan Cook is going to be scratched, but I think it'll be very interesting to see and keep track of through the year who gets that last helmet on offense because Boykin's another guy that I really felt like they kept just for special teams. I don't think he did enough in training camp to earn a spot as a wide receiver, but he's a big guy, got pretty good hands. Maybe he can be useful there, but really the reason he's kept around is because of special teams.
And specifically with Miles Killebrew being the captain, did he touch on why specifically him?
I mean, Miles has been the captain. I'm not sure that there's a specific thing that he does, I just think to me, he is the person that, here's Mike's quote. And I'm this is exactly where I was going to go with it. Mike says his kick blocking ability, his passion, his attention to detail, his leadership, and then goes on to talk about how and said that Killebrew is probably the most central remaining figure. The attention to detail on special teams, I think, to me, is the thing that stands out about Miles Killebrew, is that he, I think a lot of people do special teams and are pretty open about would rather be doing something else, and I think he's a guy that is very about special teams. I remember seeing him at training camp one day this year where he was over on the second practice field working with like a coaching assistant or a ball boy or something. I don't know, about like getting off his block and like where to put his hands, to block the punt, where he would like get off his block and like, okay, did I get my hands in the right zone? Am I high enough? Am I too low? Do I need to dive more? Like that's sort of like, that's like the TJ Watt of special teamers, right? Where you see like TJ like going into the film room for 7 hours to come up with like, the right tackle twitches his eye when it's a run, and it's like, how do you know this stuff, man? Like that's, to me, I think Miles Killebrew puts in that level of dedication to being a special teamer, and I think that's why he's a captain, and I think it's pretty well deserved for the amount of effort that he puts into it.
He knows what his meal ticket is. Yeah, he's here for special teams, so he puts everything he has into it. Gotta appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think that gets also, I think that helps with buy-in from the other guys. When you see, if you're a young player first in the NFL and you're coming out of like a bit, either you were a regular on a big college program or you were the dude at a small college program, and you come in the NFL and they're like, yeah, sorry, you're not playing any defense. Here's a helmet. You got 10 snaps. Most of them are kickoff. Good luck. I think to a lot of people, that's like a shock to the system. That's like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. This isn't what I signed up for. And I think to be able to see, and Miles is a great leader too, I think, but just to see the attention to detail and the dedication he puts into this craft, I think really opens their eyes about, wow, this is a really serious process. It's a huge part of this game. And you can have a really long career being a good special teams player in the NFL if you take it as seriously as this guy is.
Right. I do have some stuff from YouTube I want to get into. I didn't know if there's anything over the last couple of days, obviously, that you haven't been here that you thought you wanted to bring up on the show and maybe put out there.
No, I mean, not really. I was trying to unplug, trying to get away. So I was, just doing my thing.
Oh, wait. I want to ask what you make of the one thing that we did talk about yesterday was Tomlin talking about really defending Shanahan's scheme as opposed to like Brock Purdy himself. It's more about the scheme.
Yeah, well, I mean, not to like put some bulletin board material out here or anything, but like Brock Purdy isn't that good. Like there was a reason the guy was a 7th round pick. Okay.
Yeah.
The scheme is elevating the player here, clearly. And the scheme has elevated other players. Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Like, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that we have a scheme that is capable of elevating quarterbacks, and you get a 7th rounder who's a smart guy, got a pretty good arm. It's a great situation, you know? If you can't have success in that offense, you're in trouble, you know, I think as a quarterback. I think it really says a lot about Trey Lance, that he wasn't able to pick it up and get into it in a way that they were willing to give up on him. That being said, you know, I think Brock Purdy seems to have really picked up the things about this offense that are the keys for a quarterback to execute, and I think he's pretty good at them. And so I think that helps too. You know, they do a lot of sideways stuff, not just in terms of like play action, but in misdirection. And, your quarterback kind of has to be a salesman there, right? You know, you can't like halfway fakes. You can't, you want to carry out that arm fake all the way on every play. Like he's good at that stuff. I think he makes this system fit. I think that's why there was a very high comfort level with him, even coming off an injury, even though he was a 7th round pick, to be like, look, we don't need Trey Lance anymore. This is our guy. So you are defending the system, and let's be real honest here. Like the system is, if you don't stop the runs, it does not matter about Brock Purdy when you're talking about the San Francisco 49ers. If you let McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel beat you, then you've already lost. And so the passing game doesn't matter. They're going to run the ball. Stopping the run will be a huge key. And I think that's really what Tomlin was kind of hinting at there is like, to us, it doesn't matter who they play at quarterback. That's not the important thing to do here in this game. The important thing to do here is stopping Christian McCaffrey, stopping their sideways guys in space like Kittle and like Samuel. And if we're making Purdy beat us with throws down the field and he happens to, okay, like I think that's a trade-off the Steelers maybe not will take, but I think that's the box the Steelers want to put the 49ers in. You know, and if they can, if they beat them anyway from that box, then they beat them. But I think that's where they want the 49ers to be. They want Brock Purdy to be the problem. They don't want it to be Kittle and Samuel and those guys running all over them on the 4-yard air yard passes that I could throw, let alone Brock Purdy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't throw them at all. I have a terrible arm. I mean, I have no idea where it's going. With actually, the arm is fine. Arm strength is fine. We've got no radar, no GPS homing, nothing. We've just pray and spray. That's it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, there's been several Pirates pitchers that I've seen have the exact same issue in the past. So, all right, let's get to some stuff from YouTube. There was actually a couple things that I thought were really interesting and good topics. My guy, Thomas Brosius, you know what we should call him T-Bro. T-Bro says...
Brocious,
maybe? Thomas Brocious. We'll roll with that. We can roll with T-Bro, whatever he wants us to roll with here. How much of an impact do you think Darnell Washington will play against the 49ers? Do you think this is a game where 12 personnel that we keep hearing about actually comes in and makes a big difference? And I'm going to change the last part of his question because he said, does the strategy change if Bosa doesn't sign? So I will say, now that Bosa has signed, will we see more of it than we would have without?
Scott Brocious was the third baseman for the Yankees. It's spelled the same? I don't
know. It is Brosius.
Yeah, Scott. Okay. Scott Brocious was. I'm just gonna.
All right,
Greg, tell your brother Scott I said what's up. Yeah, I think you will see more 12 personnel against teams that have elite edge rushers because, and I think we talked about this before too, but Pat Freiermuth is really, really not best suited to be a hand in the ground tight end that can help chip a defensive end. When you look at his route running productivity, like the yards per route run, he is so much better when he is either a wing back or flexed out into space and away from the formation and able to get that free release and get a running start. He's so much better. And so I think when you have those situations where you're saying we got to get a chip on this guy, we need to give our tackle help with this guy, I think that's what Darnell Washington is going to be for. We'll come in and he'll be able to help for the tackle, and that lets Pat Freiermuth essentially kind of in those situations become the de facto slot receiver. You're basically taking Allen Robinson off the field and moving Pat Freiermuth into that role and leaving Washington in to help with an offensive lineman. I think Nick wrote today at SteelersNow.com, you should go there and read it, about calling Washington the X factor in this game. And I don't think anyone is predicting, myself or Nick at all, that he is going to get a lot of catches. I think his X factor will be his blocking, the ability. I put up on here on the YouTube channel some video of the tackles and tight ends working together, tandem blocking in the run. That will be a key, is if they can run at him, if they can chip him, then they can really neutralize Nick Bosa with their personnel in a pretty big way and still leave in Freiermuth and Pickens and Johnson, three really dangerous receivers on the field. I think that's what we are going to see. I would be surprised if that's not what we're going to see. I think we'll also see, obviously Allen Robinson's going to play and be an important part of the offense, but I do think we're going to see some more 12 personnel in this game specifically, maybe than you can, and maybe next week too, because the Browns and even week 3 with Crosby. There will be other teams though where that will not be the case, and I think those will be the teams maybe that have the more elite secondaries, where you feel like you need another viable receiving option to keep teams from just doubling up both guys on the outside and saying, hey, if Freiermuth gets 5 yards, he gets it, we'll take that. And so there's some give and take. I like their ability to mix and match on offense between how much will Robinson play, how much will Washington play, how much will Connor Hayward play. Maybe we'll get some Pony in there with Jaylen Warren as a second running back in the formation. I expect to see, and Calvin Austin in there too. I expect to see a lot of all that. So moving parts, but I think 12 personnel is definitely looking like a piece of this game plan that could be a thing for the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm just so intrigued. A big thing for me that I love to do after each week is look at snap counts. So I'm curious to see after just 1 week where we see the snap counts are, because is it going to be, like we talked about this before, if we see a lot of 12 personnel, it probably means Allen Robinson's off the field. So, how much of Darnell Washington are we going to see right out the gate? I think also too, talking about that, when you talk about Bosa to Garrett to Crosby, like really good benchmark to see where they're at with this, especially like in 12 personnel and just across the board where they're at with these matchups.
It's a great defense. I mean, it really is. This is going to be a very good game, a very tough game. I think there's a strong test for the Steelers offense here. Not, if you get beat up by Bosa, you've got two teams lined up behind them that can take advantage of the same things, So I think that's key. But also, this is a team that turns the ball over. The Steelers, the biggest difference between the first half of the season and the second half of the season to me was they did not turn the ball over. The one time in the second half of the season they did was the game Mitch Trubisky threw it away against the Ravens, and that was the game they lost down the stretch. I really think this is a team that understands the importance of holding on to the football, and this will be a team that is good at taking it away, and I think there's a pretty solid challenge there. I think we're going to learn a lot. I've been writing this week about Steelers burning questions, right? How good can Kenny Pickett be? Will Matt Canada turn out to be the guy? I think this is a good way for us to find the answers to those questions, not in full because that'll be played out over the course of the season, but to get a sneak peek at what we're getting in terms of those answers.
Yeah, and another one that I really liked here, former Steeler Javon Hargrave, now a member of the 49ers, because he couldn't stomach the idea. These weren't his words. I'm kind of over-exaggerating. The idea of being a Cleveland Brown. He couldn't do that because he was a Steeler. It meant too much to him. But he's now with the 49ers, and someone wants to know, what is the assignment there? Like, who from the interior offensive line do you think sees the most of Javon Hargrave, and how will that matchup go?
I tried to look this up, and I don't really know. It seems like that generally Javon Hargrave lines up as the right defensive tackle, which would put him against Isaac Seumalo. But it seems like they kind of mix and match him and Eric Armstead in there a good bit. And, one of those guys is getting double teamed most of the time. If I'm the Steelers, I think I like that matchup. I think I like Seumalo against Javon Hargrave, and that lets Daniels and Cole work against Armstead together. I think I like that the best, and then give your right tackle Chooks some help with Nick Bosa. He usually plays on the left, although he plays on both sides. And then, the other side, Drake Jackson was a second-round pick last year. Cleveland Farrell, kind of a failed first-round pick, came over from the Raiders. I expect to see both of them over there. Not as dangerous a guy. So to me, if I'm looking at this defensive line, I'm thinking, okay, if we could single up one end and Hargrave, then we can kind of give help with Bosa and double his tackle. And I think that's kind of the way I would approach it. So to me, that says Daniels and Cole on Armstead, Chooks and a tight end on Bosa, singled up on the left side with Seumalo on Hargrave. I mean, I said that wrong. No, Seumalo on Hargrave and more on Jackson or Farrell. But we'll see. I think the 49ers, anytime you have a team with a new scheme, a new coordinator, it's really hard to say going into week one exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to look. They can come out in a 3-4 for all I know. I don't know. We'll see. But I think it's I think that would be my guess as to what's going to happen. Let's just say it that way.
And we could look at what they did in the preseason and stuff, but not only was Nick Bosa not there, but again, teams aren't really showing you everything that they're going to do in the regular season anyway. So not a great indicator there either. Yeah,
and there's not that much difference between playing the left side D tackle and playing the right side D tackle. If you feel like you have a better matchup, you can flip them. It doesn't matter. You're 1 foot off the ball either way.
Yeah. Wait, I gotta get your take on something else. Derek asked us this yesterday. This is kind of a joke, but I want to get your take on this. Who do you think in the media space would win a Pittsburgh sports media space would win a 3-point contest? Because by the way, whoever you're going to say, I am issuing an open challenge at my courts right back here behind my house. I want all the smoke, whether it's Derek coming out here, whoever it might be. Nick threw out Mike DeFabo. I don't care who it is. I want them on the court.
Didn't DeFabo play lacrosse? I'm not sure there's a lot of carryover there. I don't know that I could. I don't know that I could get on board with that. In his day, I think Joe Starkey was a pretty good basketball player, but with respect to Joe, his day might be in the rearview mirror. This is a good question. Cale Berger can hoop.
Listen, I mentioned him already. I mentioned him yesterday. I said, I don't care that he shows up in a headband with his mango shorts. I want him on this court as well. So,
but I'm not sure he's the 3-point guy. I don't know that would be.
Yeah, Nick said he's a slasher.
Yeah, I don't think that's his game. I'll go Brian Batko. Was a point guard at Shaler.
You know what? I'm sorry. It wasn't no disrespect to DeFabo, but it was Batko that Nick said. It wasn't DeFabo.
Okay. I think Batko would be my choice. I think, yeah. I mean, he's a perimeter player. I think that makes the most sense for me.
All right,
not
so
the tallest guy, but I think we can work with that.
I'm putting this out there then for whether it's Batco, Kale, Derek, doesn't matter who. Senior year of high
Kale
school
will show up. I mean, that's the thing. Like Kale will show up. In between professional golf rounds, as he's now, big time with his golf show there on 93.7. But I think Batco would be my choice. No longer eligible for this as per your rules. Jeremy Fowler, he could hoop. He's a pretty good basketball player too. When he was around. Very interesting that I don't think we have any former basketball players in the Pittsburgh media. Like all football players among our, Doran Dickerson, Greg Wolfley, Charlie Batch, that group. It's kind of all football players, and honestly, not a receiver or a DB in that group either. It's a bunch of bigger guys. So if they were playing basketball, Max Starks, I don't think he was a 3-point shooter. Max might have been a center. I'm not saying I want to try to box out Max, but I'm not sure 3-point shooting is the thing. I think I'll go Batco. I'll sleep on this. If I come up with a better answer, I'll let you know. That's my.
Right,
it is not me. In addition, we're just dumping on my athletic prowess in this episode. In addition to having a terribly erratic arm, can't shoot at all. I played basketball when I was in middle school because I was the tallest kid on the team, and I was like a tree. I was just like, I'll catch it and I'll throw it to somebody else. That's all I'm good for here.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm issuing a challenge then to Batco, to Kale Berger. It doesn't matter who it is. Show up. I represented senior year of high school. I represented my class in the 3-point contest for our Winter Olympics, and I'm ready to go. So,
all right.
And that's a great way, in my opinion, to end the show, unless you got anything else, Alan.
I've got nothing that's going to top that.
All right. Tell the people where they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X. I think we're going to have to go with it. I think it's.
I mean, that's how it is showing up right now. I have the tab open. Home X.
Still don't like it. At PGH Steelers now on X and YouTube, which is where this show lives. Make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You check out all our stuff from practice. And I'm putting up a Kenny Pickett interview here as soon as this show goes up. So later this afternoon. And all kinds of stuff. So check that out as well. SteelersNow.com is where the words live. Read those. That's how I get paid.
There you go. I am Zachary Smith, PGH. As Alan said, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment down below. We love reading the comments to close out the show, so let us know what you guys want us to talk about on the next episode. If you're listening somewhere else that isn't YouTube, be sure to leave us a 5-star review there as well. Subscribe, do all that stuff wherever you're listening or watching, and check out the site. As Alan said, Alan, Nick, Derek, all the guys over there doing great work. So for Alan, I'm Smitty, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.